In this video I'll be reviewing the BLU TPMS for the RV. And this is actually the fourth TPMS system that I've reviewed. I've also reviewed the RVI Brake Tire Patrol, the Tire Minder TM55, and the Easy RV Tire Pressure Monitoring System. And the difference between this one and the others is this uses Bluetooth. And it uses either a smartphone or a tablet for the display. When I bought this I had to buy 3 items. This is the Bluetooth monitoring system, and it's available in 0 to 100 or 0 to 150 PSI. This is the 0 to 100 version. And also we have the repeater module, which is generally required when you have a trailer. And finally we have a Bluetooth receiver that is standalone audio only. So if you're not using your smartphone or your tablet, you can still get notifications if you have a tire problem. And it's called a USB audio alert module, and it is simply just a USB dongle. And the repeater extends the range of the Bluetooth signal. You can buy the base unit to monitor as few as 2 tires to at least 18 tires or so. And we bought the 4-tire system. And we have 2 trays. 2 of the sensors are in this tray, the other 2 in that tray, plus a couple batteries, a couple screws, a wrench. These are anti-theft devices. And I've already installed the application on my tablet because I want to use a tablet. That way I can dedicate this display without having to interfere with my smartphone. And the first thing it'll ask you to do is to log in. Now I wasn't able to log in. Once you create an account online, you're supposed to get a confirmation email, and I think that's probably why I cannot log in. And it's not a real big deal because the only thing they use the login for is if you want to replicate your setup to another device. So say I wanted a smartphone as well as this, then I could just transfer the settings. So it's not a real big deal. When you do this, you can set it up for a trailer or for a truck. We're showing a trailer. Unfortunately, it's a pole behind. It's not a fifth wheel, but it's not a big deal. You can set up more than one vehicle. This is the vehicle I have set up. And there are actually 3 different kinds of setups. You can do a deflation learning, manual learning, or QR code learning. And by the way, each one of these devices has a QR code. And it's interesting that the manual has a sticker with the same QR code, but it only has 2 of them, doesn't have 4. And I have 4 sensors, but they only have 2 of the sensors that were in the top tray. Anything that's RV related or smartphone related, there's no quality control in any of that stuff, it seems. Now you can get this with internal or external sensors, and of course I've got the external sensors. The deflation learning can only be used with internal sensors. It will not work with external, so that one's out. And so my choices are manual and QR code. There's a 5-digit code that is in the manual mode printed on each one of these sensors. You have to enter, or if you're going to do the QR code, then you just take a picture of that. So we're going to do it manually, so it's going to be easy enough to do. And I've pulled all 4 sensors, and I've written down the serial number for each one. Then I'm just going to assign to left front, left rear, right front, and right rear. Okay, left front is 09BC7. It says the sensors are registered. And it looks like you need a special tool to open this up because it's got an O-ring on it. It's a little bit stiff. And according to the instructions, the positive is up. And when the RV is not moving, I think these things send out a signal once every 10 minutes or something like that. And installing the sensors on the tire is pretty straightforward. You just got to make sure you match the sensor serial number to which location, right front, whatever, that you put for the tire. Now when I had tires replaced last year, I had them put in metal Schrader valves, which are better than the rubber ones. And you can see we have 3 of the sensors reporting. The 4th one was the last one I put in. There we go, now it's reporting. They all have good signal strength. They've been sitting here since last year.
All tires normal.
Oh, thank you. These actually are about 9 pounds low. They should be around 80 pounds. And, we haven't moved the RV since winterization, so, we'll top them off before we take our first trip. Looks like it's working. So now we have to do the dongle. Then we have to do the repeater. I have to find a place to plug this in. And I think we just go to audio alert module. And we have a connect.
Setup complete.
There we go. That was from the dongle.
Welcome to use TPMS voice receiver.
And then we want to go into
All tires stayed normal.
Thank you much. I like to set the pressure 20% above and 15% below. So I set 68 low, 96 high, and 140 degrees Fahrenheit as the defaults. One neat thing here, I noticed under exchange settings, you can swap the tires. So if you rotate your tires or whatever, you can rotate the sensors as well. So I think we have everything running here. It does say that in the audio dongle, if you press the red button, it will mute it. You press it again, it'll unmute it, or it'll automatically unmute in 10 minutes. And if you double click it, it'll give you a status report. So let's try it.
Tire status report. Tire front left pressure 71.7 psi. Tire front right pressure 71.7 psi. Tire rear left pressure 71 psi. Tire rear right pressure 71.7 psi.
That's interesting. Each one of these are off by 1/10. So it's probably just a rounding issue. We have the basic setup done. The next step, of course, now is to install the repeater. And of course, it should go without saying that you want to find a place for this because it does have loose serrations on that end, and you'll never change the batteries on those things without it. So just keep it someplace safe. When I wired in the repeater, I was able to use the old switch and wiring that I had dedicated for the RVI brake tire patrol. And that's a switch here, and on and off. And it's just an accessory outlet adapter here that goes up and around, and the repeater is there. And I didn't dress off the wire or cut it yet because I may have to move the repeater for the best reception. So just for now, I just put it on the wall and left a little bit of extra wiring. And on our initial test, as we rolled out of the driveway, got about a mile down the road, we started getting reporting from the tires, so everything looks fine. And then about 1 hour into the trip, the right front tire went to 0 and started alarming. Uh-oh. So I got out and checked the tire. Tire pressure was fine. So the sensor, for some reason, failed. Then I disconnected the sensor, put it back in. Everything started working fine again. Unfortunately, on the return trip about a week later, the same thing happened again, except this time 2 sensors failed. About an hour into the trip, 2 sensors went to 0 and started alarming. So I called the manufacturer's tech support, told them what happened. They said, oh, well, some of our sensors will fail after 92 psi. They'll go to 0. So you mean these 0 to 100 psi sensors are actually 0 to 92 psi? Yep, that's true. Okay, so how do I fix it? You need 150 psi sensors. But everywhere I look, they say no longer available. We may have 5 or 6 in stock, so I'll build you up a kit. So what does that mean for future purchases? I'm doing a video on your product, and I want to make sure my subscribers can buy these 150 psi sensors. Are they going to be available at some point? That's a good question. I'm really not sure. All right, well, send them to me and I'll finish the review, and then we'll see what happens in the future, I guess. So take that as a caveat for the rest of the video. So in the future, it's possible that the only sensors that are available are the 0 to 100 or, in reality, 0 to 92 psi sensors. And after a week or so, I finally received the 150 psi sensors, and guess what? One of the sensors would not work. So I had to send it back, and they tested it, and they finally determined, yeah, it's bad. So they sent me another replacement, and now finally I have 4 good working sensors. This seems to be a kind of a nice system. I really liked it, but if your tires are rated more than about 75 psi, I can't recommend it unless you can find them with 150 psi sensors. So who knows, if there's enough demand, maybe they'll start making the 150s again. I don't know. But you can use the 100 psi sensors with these small trailers, so it's still a viable system if you have a small trailer. But if you have tires that are 80 psi or more, you can't use it unless you find the 150 psi sensors.